Hi, welcome to this part of my review featuring the Weird Frontiers role-playing game. If you haven't seen the other parts of my review featuring this Weird West Dungeon Crawl Classics style role-playing game, please check out the playlist in the description below. This time we are going to talk about two more classes, the Occultist and the Revelator. Let's start with the Occultist. You were always an odd bird as a child. While most kids get the Jimmy legs after barely cracking open a book, you took to whining when Ma and Pa ushered you to go out to play. Your hunger for knowledge is never satiated and would eventually take a turn towards the esoteric world of occult investigation. Whether checking out the locals' accounts of the walking cacti in New Mexico, or investigating mysterious disappearances in local rail towns, you never grow weary on your quest to discover things most men turn a blind eye to. At some point, you began to dabble in the arcane arts with little to show for it, but the 7 days of night peeled the lid back on the arcane energies that constantly flow around all living things. You discovered that these energies could be plucked out of the air and woven into spells and rituals to astounding effect. Your newly acquired spell abilities, coupled with uncanny investigative skills, makes you indispensable to any posse setting out to pull the curtain back on the plans of evildoers and the things they serve to bring about the end of the world. Let's talk about some of the features of the Occultist class. When it comes to hit points, they are somewhat low. Your crit die is normal, your fumble die is normal. When it comes to your action die, Occultists use their action die for attack rolls, spell checks, and all class-related ability and skill rolls unless otherwise noted. When it comes to luck, an Occultist's current luck modifier applies to all investigation rolls. Concerning your path, Occultists begin the game by walking the line, but their constant dabbling in the occult, along with regularly dealing with outside malevolent forces, often leads them down the path of the damned. When it comes to your signature weapons, Occultists spend most of their time with their nose buried in dusty tomes, rather than shooting cans off of fence posts. However, the need for a backup weapon isn't lost on them. For ranged weapons, derringers and small pistols are typically chosen, while easily concealed bladed weapons are for those unavoidable melee encounters. When it comes to your class abilities, you have things such as Sixth Sense. Constant contact with the supernatural eventually begins to attune human senses to the paranormal, allowing the occultist a feeling when something isn't quite right. You also have arcane arts. The occultist has a rare talent for channeling ambient arcane energy into rituals and spells committed to the pages of ancient scrolls and tomes. Occultists begin the game with a personal grimoire containing 4 spells, determined randomly, though benevolent judges may allow a player to choose 1 or 2, and further adjusted by intelligence modifiers. Additionally, Occultists gain 1 spell at each new level in addition to spells discovered during their adventures. You can also obtain a familiar. Occultists often spend countless days locked behind the doors of their sanctums, buried in dusty tomes, and the arcane research that often accompanies them. These periods often leave little time for socializing, and many occultists feel the desire for friendship by calling for an arcane familiar. Familiars not only function as a devoted companion, but offer benefits that aid an occultist in many of their day-to-day functions. Familiars are summoned by a ritual known to every practicing student of the occult. Both the familiar and the occultist obtain some bonuses, thanks to this relationship. In the case of the familiar, the creature obtains things such as, for example, it adds the occultist's reflex save to their own natural armor class, and they gain an intelligence score of 5. In the case of the occultist, he or she obtains things such as gaining an innate trait from the summoned familiar, or gaining the ability to cast spells through the familiar, using them as a focus. There is also the spell burn feature in the occultist repertoire. Occultists often attempt to increase the effects of a spell being evoked by using blood sacrifice, the spell burn. Declare the number of points spent from any physical attributes. Each point burned this way adds 1 to the total result of the spell check on a 1-to-1 basis. You must declare spellburn before rolling any dice to attempt the spell. You describe what method the occultist is using to spellburn, perhaps cutting with a ritual dagger, burning flesh, etc. Ability points burned in this manner cannot be healed magically, as doing so upsets the ebb and flow of arcane energies that constantly surround the occultist. You have a couple of really cool tables to generate many things about your familiar. Maybe you have a scorpion that gives you a bonus to your armor class, and the scorpion has a mellow personality. Maybe you have a rattlesnake giving you a bonus in poison saves, and this rattlesnake is quite grumpy. Maybe you have a cockroach giving you a bonus to fortitude saving throws, and this cockroach is quite comical. There are 20 results in total, and 20 results of personality types when it comes to familiars. Now, let's talk about the Revelator. You spent your days in a peaceful existence, tending to the spiritual needs of your flock. That is, until the events of the 7 days of night, which set loose dark things into the world, and a visitor from heaven itself came to you, with a different calling. This angel, for what else could it have been, declared that the time of peace you'd gotten all cozy with had ended. Men with the blackest of hearts have unleashed unspeakable evil into the world, and are even now intent on bringing about the end of mankind by freeing ancient gods trapped in dimensional exile. It was then that the being baptized you in the fires of divinity. The flames enveloped you, licked at your soul, left you burning with a different fire, one that helps you march faithfully into the darkest nights, providing you with the divine power to manifest miracles. When it comes to hit points, you are pretty decent in that department. Your crit die is also pretty good. Your fumble die is normal. When it comes to action die, Revelators use their action die for attack rolls and class-related ability and skill rolls, unless otherwise noted. There's also fall from grace. Sometimes a Revelator takes a wrong turn while trying their best to walk the righteous path. Falling from grace can often seem random, but it's known that God has a plan for everything. Sometimes a Revelator can unknowingly step on divine toes, hindering that plan. Should a Revelator roll a natural 1 on a divine healing, miracle check, or turn back the night check, the Revelator's action conflicts for reasons unknown, and the Revelator begins their fall from grace. This is explained in the magic section of the book. When it comes to luck, Revelators add their current luck bonus to all willpower saves. Concerning your path, Revelators begin by walking the line, but must strive towards the path of the righteous, knowing the role they play in the upcoming endgame between the forces of light and the agents of darkness. Revelators tolerate the darker heroes making their way across the frontier, ultimately seeing them as a means to an end. When it comes to your signature weapons, Revelators typically choose firearms, clubs, and bladed weapons when forced to fight. Let's talk about some of the class abilities. You have Divine Healing. The Revelator has a gift for channeling divine energy for the purpose of healing the sick and wounded. To attempt a healing, the Revelator must physically touch the subject's wounds. However, some injuries are harder to heal than others, so you have all of the information on this sort of difficulty concerning broken limbs, organ damage, disease, lost limbs, etc. There's also Exorcism. Bad souls typically end up in bad places, and in an effort to evade their inevitable fate, powerful spirits often attach themselves to ride an unknowing living host, often resulting in further misery and pain. Exorcism is the Revelator's way of ejecting the malevolent creature so that it can be dealt with face to face. You also have the Turn Back the Night feature. Revelators act as a constant forge for the fires of the righteous and shine like a beacon of divine energy, serving to remind the damned of the error of their ways. Any type of undead, demon, or otherworldly being is subject to the Turn Back the Night ability. Depending on your role, these creatures could end up being turned away or even destroyed. You also have Holy Smite. At high levels, a Revelator's turn attempt produces holy energy that smites unholy creatures in close proximity. This is manifested as a beam of concentrated light that the Revelator can direct against one target within certain distances, and it also works as a cone, so you have an area of effect projection. And then we have miracles. Revelators act as a direct conduit to the divine, able to perform things best described as miracles by those who give witness. Miracles take many forms that often depend upon the moment of need, raining fire down from the heavens to smite evil, creating food and water for the hungry, etc. To represent this, the Revelator may choose from any of the miracles listed in the magic section of this book. And this concludes this part of the review. As you can see, these couple of classes are very cool and quite specialized. In the case of the Occultist, this is a full-time spellcaster, and because of his knowledge, his experience with the occult, he is one of the more steadfast members of the group. Very few things can scare an occultist, and because of the bonuses that he shares with his familiar, he is a force to be reckoned with. However, keep him from melee combat, and don't get him into athletics-related situations. And when it comes to the Revelator, this is your full-time divine spellcaster. You do have some potential when it comes to taking the fight to the enemy in the front lines, but it is better to be at a medium range when it comes to fighting, so that you can step back and heal and protect the other members as needed. And you also need to get ready to step forth and banish those undead and demons through your holy power. Thank you for watching this part of the review. If you have any comments or questions, please let me know. And thank you so much to those of you that have been supporting the channel by sending Drive-Thru RPG gift certificates. If anyone else wants to further support the channel, the information on how to do that will be in the description below. Once again, thank you and see you later.